A friend had their baby early. Someone is ill or going through a rough time. An unexpected guest is coming to visit. There's a humanitarian crisis. Or dang, I forgot an anniversary or birthday. Whatever the reason, I need a quilt and I need it now. Hi, I'm Amy and I make things. And in today's video, I'm making a quilt in a quick hurry. Hang around, let's see what happened. If you've been watching my videos, you know that my family recently traveled to Walt Disney World. And while we were gone, my sister-in-law and her friend came to house sit and pet sit for us. Y'all, we have 6 dogs and 4 cats, so this is no small ask and definitely worthy of a thank you quilt. Now, I didn't think I had time. No, I knew I didn't have time from the time I hatched the idea until the deadline of when it needed to be finished. It was 2 weeks. And I was still finishing all the kids' quilts and trying to get them shipped out before we left for vacation, trying to get everybody ready for vacation, and a half dozen other things that were going on. It was crazy. And then Fat Quarter Shop came to my rescue. Fat Quarter Shop published the free Fat Quarter 4-patch pattern. Guys, do you ever have a project that when you see it, it pops into your mind and you know exactly what you're going to do, exactly what fabric and how it's going to work out and how it will look at the end? That's what this project was. When I saw the pattern, I knew exactly what I was going to do and I knew I could crank it out in the allotted time. Barely. Barely. So I got to work. I pulled fabrics from my stash and from my scraps, and I started cutting and pressing and sewing and cutting and pressing and sewing. You know how it goes. All the while still finishing up the kids' quilts and making it all work. It was crazy. I was determined. In fact, I was still quilting it on the long arm as they were driving the 30-minute drive from the airport. I had to call Casey and ask him to stop for coffee because I needed an extra 10 minutes to get it off the long arm and hidden away so that my sister-in-law didn't see it and ruin the surprise. I made it in the nick of time and I bound it and got it in the washer on the lowdown while everyone was working on conference calls that morning. It was quite a race to the finish and totally worth it. We'll show you. And it's blues and teals and purples, and sometimes all 4 of them match, sometimes they don't, and that's okay. That's what makes it fun to look at. Plus, you know, the hot sexy men and behind the quilt. My sister-in-law loves it. You saw the clip. You saw what she thought about it, or you heard me tell you what she thought about it. While I don't recommend working at a breakneck pace in general, there are many reasons why you might need a quilt in a hurry. The reasons I list in the intro are just a few. And hey, you may need a quick win after a complicated project or just to get your sewing mojo back. I've shown you the Fat Quarter 4-patch. I'm going to show you 5 more patterns that are in my emergency quilting ideas repertoire. First, what do I look for in a go-to quick turnaround quilt? What do I look for in the pattern? My go-to patterns are quick to make, obviously, but they don't look quick to make. They're not boring. Another feature I look for is scalability. And what I mean by scalability is that I can add more or remove blocks to make it the size I need. If I need a baby quilt or a lap quilt or a twin quilt, it's easy to adjust, either by adding and removing blocks or by altering the unit size that I'm making. And I'll point that out as we walk through the patterns and samples. First up on my list is the Villarosa Designs Duet Quilt. Guys, the Villarosa Designs are those little postcards that you see at your quilt shop checkout stand. They're quick, they're easy, they're great. You can also download them digitally, and all the patterns that I'm going to mention I will link down below. Let me get my fancy sliding quilt system. It's my son today, and I'll show you this quilt. Guys, I make this quilt a lot. It's an easy go-to. It works for 2.5-inch strips. It works with fat quarters cut into 2.5-inch strips. You can alter the strip size to make a bigger or smaller quilt unit. You can alter the block size to make a bigger or smaller quilt unit, and it's dynamic. It works with super busy fabrics. Thank you. It works with basics. It works with a jelly roll. It works with strips cut from your stash. It's easy. It's super easy, and it's always a hit. Back that sucker with Minky. Primo. Everybody loves it. Another great strip quilt in the same vein that embraces more randomness, maybe is not as quick because the pieces are tiny, is Bonnie Hunter's Bitcoin quilt. Yes, next. And there again, it's got flexibility and scalability. You can use a larger piece. You can use the strips that you have. It's an easy concept pattern that you can adjust and enhance in any way that you see fit. Thank you. The next pattern in my go-to quilt patterns is the Missouri Star Stack and Flip pattern. Somehow I always end up with a rainbow jelly roll. Door prize, gift with purchase, can't resist it, but it'll work with any color scheme. Yes, now come on in. And it would honestly work with any strip size. And if you need it wider or narrower, you can adjust, these portions. You can adjust the sizes of your cuts, you can adjust the sizes of your borders and the spaces in between to get the proportions that you need. It's a great quilt. This one is a Van Gogh print from Robert Kaufman, I believe, several years ago. I quilted lyrics from Don McLean's Vincent, Starry Starry Night, into the stripes, just because I'm extra. But this is a great quilt, and you can size it and scale it, make it a baby size, make it a lap size, but it makes a great twin size quilt, and it's a fantastic quilt for teenage boys or for men, especially for a twin bed for someone going off to college. Thank you. Now the next quilts that I'm going to talk about are not so much a pattern as much as a category of quilts. Now I have links to the pattern and the quilt along that I followed with this specific example, but it's a half square triangle quilt. Guys, you can make them in any size. Make big giant half squares triangle quilts. One of the things I look for is the ability to use super busy fabrics. I like large scale prints, I like super busy fabrics, but when you use super busy fabrics, you don't necessarily get the effect if you cut them in tiny little pieces. So a larger scale half square triangle quilt can be just the ticket. This was the Pat Sloan quilt along from May of 2020, I suppose. And, you know, I adjusted it as I do. I can't leave well enough alone, and there's no pink in the rainbow. My science-based inner being couldn't allow that, but I adjusted it to suit what I needed. And that's the beauty of the quick patterns, is that they are adjustable and able to be modified to exactly what you need, or to your taste, or to your recipient's taste. Thank you. The next quilt we're going to look at is the AccuQuilt Strip Pizzazz pattern. Yep, come on in. And guys, let me let you in on a little secret. You don't need an AccuQuilt machine to cut 2.5-inch strips. Don't sleep on the AccuQuilt quilt library, their free pattern library, because you don't need a die to cut your basic shapes. You know how to cut a 2.5-inch strip? We all do it. And this is just, it's a great pattern. It's a 2-color quilt. It's orange and gray, but it's, 9 different oranges and 12 different grays. I used what I had, and it's easy to adjust. It's easy to scale. Great quilt in a hurry. Thank you. Now the next two are your good old jelly roll race quilts. They're good in a pinch, they're good in a hurry, they're fun to make. They're fun to make with groups or people you're teaching to quilt. Come on in. These were not made from jelly rolls. I say that. This one was not made from a jelly roll. This one was just made from 2.5-inch strips I had in my stash. I chose my colors, I put them together. I'll link several resources down below. Super easy, super fun, very quick, and everyone loves them. Thank you.
It's got little bumblebee.
And one more jelly roll race. This one's a holiday jelly roll that I honestly don't remember where I picked up or how I came to have it. But this one, I don't know, I think I'm in the way. This one is joined with straight seams, where the last one was joined on the diagonal. Lots of variations, and I will link several down below. Thank you. And the last idea I have for you is basic checkerboards. Guys, this was a vintage piece that a friend sent to me, and I quilted basic squares. Any size, any print, any color scheme. Alright, I've got 2 more of the checkerboards to show you. Alright, thank you, Toby. And these 2 were made as leader ender projects. You can make them in a hurry, and you can make them with any size. These are 2.5-inch squares because that's what I had, but they're super adorable with 5-inch squares, 3.5-inch squares, whatever you've got. And that's the beauty of it. You can use the fabric that you have on hand. You can use leftovers from another project, mix and match, put a solid with it or put a neutral with it. Boom, you've got a quilt. All right. And it's 100 different greens and 100 different neutrals. It doesn't matter. And when it's all put together like that, you have a unified, lovely, charming quilt. Thank you. I've got a blue one just like it, made the same way. Same thing, 2.5-inch squares, blues and neutrals, all different blues, all different neutrals, put all together. It's great. Thank you. Big round of applause for my sliding quilt system assistant. Thank you, I appreciate it, and you are free to go.
Take my quilt with me.
You can take your quilt with you, yes. So those are a few of my go-to quick turnaround quilt patterns. The Villa Rosa Duet, guys, I make that one a lot. Half square triangle quilts, that's one of my go-tos for a baby quilt. I've got a photo here of another one. It wasn't quick because it's hand quilted, but just to show you the variety. Just to show variety of color and pattern choices. It's a whole different kind of rainbow quilt. The AccuQuilt Strip Pizzazz quilt or any basic rail fence quilt, that one's a 5. A lot of rail fences are strips of 3. But like I say, don't sleep on that AccuQuilt site. It's a fantastic resource. You absolutely do not need an AccuQuilt cutter to cut squares and strips. Good staple of the Jelly Roll Race quilt. I like the modified versions. I like them a little bigger, a little different. But that's the beauty of these patterns, is their flexibility. And checkerboard quilts. Guys, there's nothing easier than sewing blocks together. And when you mix and match the patterns and the designs and put more and more colors in, they're very dynamic and lots of fun to look at. And of course, the Save My Bacon Fat Quarter 4 patch. The key features that I look for: easy to make, but doesn't look easy. Not boring, either by the dynamic aspect of the pattern or the ability to use fun fabrics, large scale prints, or lots of varying colors. Scalable and flexible. I need to be able to make it work with the strip or the square that I have on hand. And the 4th thing I look for is a digital pattern. Preferably free, but that's not necessary. But a digital pattern, because these are quilts you're making when you do not have time to wait. I've made most of these patterns, with the exception of the one, but I'm sure I will, again and again, and none of them ever look the same. They are all unique and dynamic depending on my fabric choices, my choices of scale, the modifications I make, and the way that they're quilted. Quick does not equal boring, nor does it mean you have to go out and buy a pre-cut so you can make a quilt in a hurry. You have a ruler, you have a rotary cutter, you have a stash, and you can get to work immediately. You can download that pattern, choose your colors, and hit the ground running and be off to the races. Maybe not as racy as I've been the past few weeks, but quick nonetheless. So, what I want to know from you is what is your go-to quick turnaround quilt? When you're in a pinch or you need a gift in a hurry, what is your go-to pattern? Let me know in the comments below, and you know the drill. While you're down there, hit all those buttons like, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching, guys. And don't forget, you make the world more beautiful just by being in it. I'm Amy, and I'll see you next time.